This is the Rebel Author Podcast, where we talk about books, business, and occasionally bad words. Hello, Rebels, and welcome to episode 218 of the Rebel Author Podcast. Today, I'm talking to Holger Nils Pohl, and we're talking all about writing high-quality children's books, as well as talking about creating clarity and business in your back matter of your books and all kinds of things. So I'm not asking a question of the week. I would still love to know what you thought about the episode. So if you have thoughts, please do leave comments, and I will be reading them out on the show. Personal news and updates then. I have finished my outline. It took me a whole week because I had a couple of days out of the office, but I have now finished my outline and I am going to be starting to write tomorrow. And as I finish this book before Christmas, I will be working on a couple of things. One is creating my Shopify store, and the other thing is I finally know what I'm going to be doing with all of the courses and this kind of stuff. So what has been preventing me from creating nonfiction courses is that I really love your face. This sounds ridiculous, I know. But this was a realization that I had in Vegas. The thing that I thrive off when I teach is seeing you, seeing your face and seeing how you react to the information that I'm sharing or the lessons that I've learned or the tools and the tricks that I'm giving you. And so what I was struggling to do was to do that in a pre-recorded course. So what makes total sense to me then, and thank you, Joe, who made this suggestion, is to teach live and to do one-off webinars or to do kind of like a live webinar that I do across a couple of time zones so that people can come from different time zones. So I am going to be doing that, and starting on the first weekend in February. I'm saying this publicly so that I've committed. I will probably put it up for, well, what is that? It's not a pre-order, is it? Is it a pre-order? No, I don't, like for purchase? I don't know, for booking, there we go, for booking, possibly before Christmas, maybe because it's so tight now, I might just leave it until January, probably leave it, I don't know. Anyway, look out for that. If you're on my newsletter, you'll find out first in the Patreon community, and obviously I will then tell you here, and I will share the links to that. I'm going to be doing Pros in the Market as the first one, where I will show you, understand what requirements there are for, or what expectations there are from readers, how you can include tropes in your books intentionally in order to put them into your marketing. I'll show you how to deconstruct what the authors who are selling the top sellers in your genre, how to deconstruct what they're doing, the elements that you need to take into your prose and your writing and your craft, a whole bunch of stuff. I will probably write a blurb so that I speak more coherently, but I am super excited now because I now get to do the thing that I love, which is one, teaching and sharing the information, but two, getting to see your faces. I literally don't understand why this didn't occur to me sooner, but sometimes we can't see the wood for the trees, can we? Okay, so Listener of the Week this week is Anonymous. Listener, Rebel of the Week is Anonymous. Anonymous says, I grew up in a very straight-laced household and was often reprimanded for wearing anything that revealed too much skin. Shirts that showed cleavage, shorter skirts and midriff were off limits. One of the biggest reasons I was given was that it would tempt men too much. Ugh. Specifically older men like teachers. What the fuck? There is so much wrong with that. Oh my God. I always found this extremely annoying because I didn't feel like I should have to cover up exactly for the sake of protecting the virtues of somebody else. Amen. I never felt shame towards my body and didn't really appreciate my family trying to instill that shame in me. I was taught to hide myself, but the lesson didn't really stick. As an adult, I wear whatever I want, and sometimes that means nothing at all. For example, I'm a winter swimming addict and can be found at the lake each week taking a chilly dip completely in the skinny, because when it's freezing, I can't be fucked with a suit. Not only is the nudity functional, allowing me to quickly dry off and get into warm clothes, but it's also freeing. It feels like the most natural thing in the world. I'm not alone in this. I now live in a country where nudity isn't as much of a taboo, so I see fellow swimmers showing off their bits all year round. It isn't crude or sexual, it's just people having a swim. First of all, I love this rebellion. Second of all, whoa, to freeze it, to swimming in the nuddy pants, like balls of steel, vagina of iron, whichever way you want to describe it. Like, I can cut bacon over here just thinking about getting in a freezing cold lake. Or river or whatever it is that you swim in. Holy moly. Okay, no new patrons this week, but a huge, enormous thank you to all of my existing patrons. If you would like to support the show and get early access to all of the episodes, as well as bonus content, we're having a Christmas bash for our Poison and Prose session. We're going to be talking about what we've achieved this year, what we're going to achieve next year, and then we're going to have some fun and games. And then we have our final masterclass of the year, early December, where we are going to be learning all about dark academia. So you can get all of that and much more from as little as $2 a month by visiting patreon.com/Sasha Black. This episode is sponsored by Kobo Writing Life, Kobo's free, fast and easy self-publishing platform. KWL was built by authors for authors, and their team of dedicated book lovers is always working hard to help you reach new readers around the world. Kobo's author-first approach is one of the reasons they developed a promotions tool. This is an easy, affordable way for you to market your book directly to Kobo readers. They offer lots of promotions that don't require you to drop your price because they know when you're publishing wide, it can be a pain to coordinate pricing across multiple retailers. Any promotions listed as a % off, e.g. 40% VIP sale, means you don't have to change your price as the discount will be provided by the promo code at checkout. If that sounds good to you, keep an eye out for % off promotions and buy more, save more sales, where you can submit your titles and leave the rest to Kobo. And if you're taking part in a promotion, be sure to tell your readers about it. The promotions tool is updated on a weekly basis, so make sure you're taking a regular look to see what's on offer if there's an opportunity that matches your books and marketing plans. If you're a KWL author and don't yet have access to the promotions tool, email the team at writinglife@kobo.com. They'll enable this for you. If you want to learn more about KWL, check out the Kobo Writing Life podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts, and find them on social. You can create your free account today at kobo.com/writinglife. Hello and welcome to the Rebel Author podcast. Today I am joined by Holger Nils Pohl. Holger is a visual strategist, professional speaker, trainer, and coach. He's also the author of multiple books from business to children's, as well as the co-creator of an award-winning business board game. Hello and welcome.
Hello, Sasha. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining me. Tell me about the business game, the business board game.
The business board game. So that was the idea that some business concepts are pretty tricky to learn for people. And in this case, it was about lean startup, which is a very tricky concept to understand for normal business people because it's about learning first about the needs of your customers before you produce or build a service or a product. So you first go to the customers, you learn from them what they need, and then you start building your product. Whereas in most cases, businesses build a product and try to find a customer afterwards, right? And the challenge, right? That's a challenge because you spend a lot of money developing a product, but you don't know if anybody wants it actually.
It reminds me of the whole concept of writing to market.
Absolutely.
Right? Because we're so resistant in the community to, I don't really like calling it writing to market. I feel like it's writing to reader. That's the phrase that I like to use because the reader is the purchaser and therefore you're delivering to the customer what the customer actually wants. And I suppose it's that age-old question of business versus art, but I kind of feel like it is an art form to deliver what the customer actually wants. The amount of iteration and practice and trial and error that you have to use to actually deliver what the reader desires, because we can write in air quotes a trope and not actually nail that trope in terms of what the market wants. And that's why I feel like so much of this is science versus science and art combined, because these tropes, these things, all of the prose, it's a science. Like you can deconstruct it to forensic detail, like as a science. But anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about. But I find that super interesting though. Tell everyone a little bit about your journey and how you got to where you are today. Like what inspired you to start writing about clarity and autism for children?
Yeah, so that's a long journey. Let me try to make that short enough. So I was a creator all my life. I wasn't a writer. So many writers say they wrote for all their life, but actually I hated writing in school. I wasn't very good at it, but I was creating, I was drawing, I was painting, I was crafting. And that led to the decision that I would become an architect because that would be something like an engineer. That's kind of a proper job and still being creative. I couldn't be more wrong in my life, right? So I tried that for 1.5 years and then just stopped it, left university completely like disillusionized and didn't know what to do. But I came back to the crafting piece and I became a carpenter. And carpentry is basically as well kind of a creative job because you craft something out of a raw material, which is wood. And that was a lot of fun to learn that. Wasn't enough for me, so I wanted to learn more and went to the university again and became a communication designer, which is again like a lot of creativity, a lot of creation, but a lot of psychology as well, which was nice. And while I did that, I was as well a teacher in an art school, like teaching people how to draw, how to paint with oil and acrylics, watercolors, all that kind of stuff. And that led to my self-employment right after the university, doing a bit of teaching. I was a lecturer at universities and I helped clients designing concepts and all that kind of stuff. And built that over the years into a business of facilitation, coaching, and training to help people creating more clarity with the visual tools, because I saw the need that a lot of people just talk from left to right. They misunderstand each other. And my belief is that visual tools can help solving that. I did that for a while and people started to ask me, like, could you write a book about what you know? And we're back to writing to reader actually, right? So because people were requesting from me, like, we need what you know, and we need your brain in a book actually, because we can't pay you for being here all the time. And that's when I started writing books, nonfiction books about creativity, innovation, and clarity, and drawing. So I have some drawing books too. And that's kind of the business side. So then a funny thing happened, actually. That was 2019. So I was invited to a workshop helping people like parents and caretakers of autistic children to understand how they could leverage drawing to communicate with autistic individuals, because it's sometimes a bit tricky to talk to autistics, right? And that will be a new layer of information and a new layer of communication. So I went there. I just read like on the high level, what is autism? Because I didn't have a clue actually. Went to the workshop, did the workshop. Everything was fine. Everybody was happy. And I left. 1 year later, my oldest daughter got diagnosed with autism, Asperger's autism. I didn't have a clue before, right? It was just by chance that we figured she needs help in school, and over the course of some diagnosis, it came out it's autism. And that was the moment when I figured out myself that I am an Asperger's artist, or how we call ourselves, Aspie. And I didn't know for 40 years. That was kind of a shocking revelation. And it's still difficult to talk about it, interesting. Like even 3 years after that, it's difficult to talk about it. A year later, our son as well got diagnosed. So we have 3 kids. So 2 of them are Aspies like me. And the third one is neurodivergent too, but with the ADHD. So we have kind of a fun family at home. But what I did, and I'm Clifton Threnth, I'm top learner, like number one learner, number one intellection, and then activator, strategic, and achiever. So that led me to buying like a gazillion books about autism when I learned about that topic, and that could be me and my family. And I figured there are not enough books for kids. So to just explain autism in a way that kids could enjoy a story and understand what it is. And that's why I started writing as well about autism.
I love this so much. I'm not sure and feel free to say no, you don't want to talk about this and I will delete it out of the show. But have you found that you have been able to change your environment or like change things in your business to help you feel more comfortable, or like after having a diagnosis, have you found that your creativity or processes have changed, like as a result, like for the better?
I would say I'm still on a journey. So even though I don't like the journey word, but it's kind of a journey with a lot of uphill fighting. I already changed like a few things. So for example, before the pandemic, I was traveling literally every week to another country, like across USA to Asia and Middle East and Europe. I'm based in Germany. And I stopped that, right? Even when the pandemic was gone and we could travel again, I refused to travel that much because I now know that for an Aspie like me, traveling that much is not the best idea, because it's a lot of stressful situations and loud and different hotels to sleep in and all that kind of stuff. It's not healthy for me. So I reduced that hugely and working more from home or from the office virtually, doing virtual calls with my clients, which works properly well. And it's more comfortable for myself. And the second thing is that I'm leaning more into my creativity again, because that's my special interest as an SP, right? Like creating stuff, drawing, learning, helping people to understand things. And I'm leaning into that very heavily now, which I didn't do before. That was more like business. And now it's more like, what can I create today?
As I have grown older, so I have a nearly 10-year-old now, and he has had some issues at school, which has enabled me to be a lot more reflective, like in and of myself. And I have sensory issues, which I don't really talk about on this show, but they can be quite severe. And I get very, very oversensitized quite quickly. And I think like being aware of it has enabled me to like embrace it and therefore not have to like mask it or cope with it. And so now I have like loop ear plugs that I don't leave the house without. I can't go on the underground without them. I can't be in a restaurant without them. I used to really struggle, like when Atlas would go to, like the kids' bouncy play places. Like,
oh no, yeah.
Like I used to come out exhausted and I'd feel like I was vibrating and stuff. And so now like I can go in there with my earplugs in. I can still have conversations because they're really like smart tech. I don't know how they work, but I can still hear everybody, but just and like actually I can enjoy it now. And it's made my life like so much better. Instead of denying like those issues, I'm just like so much happier knowing that like that is an issue. I do have like sensory issues. Like I'm funny about fabrics and I'm funny about texture and I'm funny about bloody like lights and all kinds of shit. But like I would never admit that. Like I don't even think I've said this on the show ever before. But like it's something that like you, because of my child, I've actually been able to turn around and go, oh yeah, shit. Like me too, you know?
Exactly.
So I think it's wonderful, and it's definitely made me happier. So okay, let's talk a little bit about your process. Where and how do you even start writing for children? Because obviously, like as adults, our frame of reference and our mindset is adults, right? Like we think as an adult. So excuse me. Do you pick like a theme or a topic? Like, do you just write first? Do you talk to an illustrator? Like, tell me all the things. Like, how do you go from idea to like fully completed project?
So from like the very first thing that I want to say is intention, right? And the intention to be creative. I think that's important. Often enough, sometimes we run through our life without really looking at things. We just take things for granted and do our stuff. So like what I do basically every morning in the mirror is talking to myself and say like, I am creative. It's a self-affirmation, right? And that's how I go through the world. I try to observe, I see what people do. I hear what they talk about. I mean, with the hearing is the problem too. I have the ear loops too, so I need to
Oh,
have them as well outside.
they're
It's kind of a
amazing.
revelation. Yeah.
Have you seen the new Switch ones?
Yeah, I have. I was itching to order them right away. So
I want them so much. I go on my Christmas list.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And so I go through the world already every day, thinking about the things that I see, analyzing how people are behaving and why they are behaving the way they behave, and trying to understand as well. I do that anyways as an ASPI, right? As an autistic individual, you scan your environment anyways all the time with your cognition to understand how people act. And I use that for my creation. So that's always kind of the groundwork. And then for me personally, I mean, that's a big question. Where do we get our ideas? Is often, I would even say always, triggered by a situation in life where I see there is either a question unanswered or a problem raised that I could solve with the story, right? In the case of my first children's book, that's Kaya and the Apple Tree. That's about a young girl that's living up in the clouds, in a city in the clouds, and she has like a small pet that's a unicornlet. It's basically a squirrel with a unicorn, and they have just a small like adventure, and it tells about trust and courage. So that idea came because our youngest daughter, she has scoliosis as well, like a pretty severe, and she had to go to a clinic for 4 weeks over Easter this year. And my wife was with her in the clinic. I was at home with my 2 autistics as well, so that was fun. But she was writing me that our daughter would like to receive post because there was a post office in the clinic, and she would check post every day, right? If there's something. So I thought, okay, I could buy just postcards and send like every day a postcard, right? That was my first idea. And then I thought, like, look, I am creative. That's what I say in the mirror. Just buying postcards doesn't do the job, actually. So what I did is I wrote the story about Kaya and the apple tree in one afternoon. It wasn't perfect, right? It wasn't perfectly edited, but it was good enough. It's kind of the second draft. And I drew a very rough storyboard, how I imagined the pictures. They were not even proper drawings, very, very rough. Just spaced out like how I imagined that. And I gave that to my illustrator. I must say I have a full-time employed illustrator, right? So he's part of my business. But I gave that to Benny, that's my illustrator, and said, like, I need this in an as simple style that you can create that in one afternoon, right? And he did that because he had fun as well on this. Mm-hmm. And after 2 days, I had like the kids' book, basically. But it wasn't a book back then. It was like individual cards. So every double page of the children's book would be a card, a postcard that I would send every second day to my daughter, and she would have like a continued story over 4 weeks to read every second day. And that's where the idea came from. A very specific need, and sitting down and say, what could I do about it?
I think that is the most wonderful thing you could do. Like, what an amazing dad you are. That is absolutely incredible. I want someone to send me a story. No, I don't feel like. Oh wow, that is amazing. That is amazing. So how did you, because you've done more than one now, and you've got this beautiful color illustrated book. So talk to me a little bit about that process.
Yeah. So I would say it's always first the concept and the writing. And sometimes I draw in parallel. So if it's a nonfiction, a business book, I would draw sketches myself. If it's a kid's book, I'm not that proficient in kind of fantasy drawings or like very elaborate drawings. So I'm not that fast with that. So I would create the text based on the idea that I have, and then start pretty early, even before it's a proper first draft, talking to my illustrator and say, this is what I plan. How could we separate that into pages, into different pictures? And we draw together, basically, work together on storyboards. I'm like, okay, this is the content. Could we split that into 2 or 3 parts or 4 parts? Because when you create children's books, you need to think in both levels, right? You need to think in words and you need to think in pictures, because they have to come together perfectly to create that wonderful story, right? So we would do that like basically in tandem. If you hire an illustrator, that could be a bit more expensive, but it's possible to sit together with them. And when I have that rough idea on how the pages will look like on a very, very rough level, then I start to refine the text basically. For Kaya, that was normal prose, so I didn't rhyme with something. For The Wrong Planet, that's the autism children's books that I'm just launching right now at the moment, I used rhyme. And that was tricky too, because I like never was a poet before, so I had to learn that. I guess that was my Clifton strength again, right? Learning something new.
Well, talk to me about that, because obviously you speak more than one language and you've written the book in more than one language. So talk to me about how that worked. Like, does it rhyme in German as well, or like how?
I like in this case. So for The Wrong Planet, I choose the way with a translator. So what I did is I wrote the original version in German, had all the rhyme and everything ready, worked with an editor, had like the finished book ready. And then I searched for a translator who would be able to translate German rhyme into English rhyme, because that's a separate art form to do that, because we use different pictures and metaphors than you do in England, right? So I had to find somebody that took a while. And then she would do like a really great job in translating that into the English version. And the good thing is that I can speak it myself. I could be very close in the process as well, to say, look, this sounds like a bit too far off compared to the German version. Why is that so? And we would have that discussion, as well as checking if we're still on track in terms of a language that children could understand, right?
I mean, like my mind is like whirling with the complexity of how and also I find it interesting that you didn't translate it as well, like obviously because you're so fluent, like like I find that really interesting. But I suppose you're right in that like the imagery is not necessarily the same, like there are linguistic differences with the imagery. This is so interesting. Like absolutely fascinating. So talk to me about the process of portraying autism, but in a child-friendly way, in a way that children can understand the complexity of autism.
So I believe that children understand through stories, right? So it's not that we explain something to them and then it's pretty obvious. And basically, I would say with autism comes the challenge that even adults don't understand it properly, what it feels like, because we can know the facts and the figures, but the question is, can you feel it? And therefore, you need to craft something. As I said, like what I meant with that before is that the pictures as well with the words come together to an experience. I think that's important. So they build on each other. So in The Wrong Planet, for example, we choose sometimes very special perspectives to look at the protagonists, for example, from the far, like if somebody's flying over them, so they look very small because at that moment they feel alone and unsure and like not secure. And we strengthen that experience by choosing a picture that shows that as well. So it comes together nicely. And it's about the rhythm as well. So in the book, I'm playing with longer sentences and dialogues for faces where it's kind of relaxed and it seems pretty normal. And I'm switching to actually one word lines where it becomes pretty stressful or loud or tricky for the alien in that case, which is the autistic individual. So that becomes clear they have to deal with something on a rapid pace. And you get that feeling through the words as well through the layout on the page, because you see the long sentences and then you have only one word after one word and then long sentences again, give you that rhythm and instills hopefully that emotion as well that the autistic individual is experiencing in that moment. The other thing is structure. So I find it very important to give very clear structure. So for In the Wrong Planet, I have always 4 double pages per topic, if we say it like that. So the alien starts on their planet and it's starting to fly and crashing on Earth. That's 4 double pages. Then they meet ducks, 4 double pages. Then they meet other animals step by step. It's always 4 pages. So if a kid reads the book themselves or get the book read by a parent, they can actually foresee how long this part of the story will take, right? Because they unconsciously, they understand it's always those 4 pages, right? Which is very helpful as well to let loose, concentrate on the story, don't need to understand the structure because the structure is so clear, there's no confusion. And I think that builds together the structure, the kind of how do you place it on the page, how are the visuals coming together, and what kind of words do you use as well. So
yeah, I think, well, I thought it was amazing. I think that because I've told you that privately. I read the book with my son, and it was so surprising to me how deeply he had understood the story, but in his own child mind and in his own child way. And so much so that the first kind of comment that he reflected on is, this must be what white people do to black people, and he talked about the differing and making black people feel, or people of color feel different because they don't look the same or for whatever reason. And he was saying, is this how autistic people feel? And I said, well, yeah, they feel different. And like the fact that he put those dots together obviously is testament to your book and to the fact that you've so clearly explained such a complex topic in such a relatable, understandable way. So that's really testament to you. It was amazing. And I was so, I don't know, I don't think I'll ever forget that moment when I really saw that he understood what racism is, what homophobia, what being discrimination is. It was just fantastic. So I can't wait to have a physical copy. So I'm really excited. I'm going to give one to the school as well. So
and I would like to build on this, Sasha, very quickly, because we talked about writing to reader. What I did with that book too, and that's something I want to encourage other authors to, is I read that book to many, many people before it was even finished. So when I had the very first, very rough sketches of my illustrator, they were so rough, super ugly, actually, but I had something that I could put it on a page, right? Very first sketches. And I had the rough layout of my text. It was not even perfectly refined. I started to read that book out loud to groups of people. So, for example, I took it to Autism Switzerland, where I had another workshop in 2021. And I read that draft to all the parents and caretakers of autistic individuals. And I asked them, is it okay if I read a book to you? It's about autism. It's not finished, right? It's not beautiful. I would like to see your reactions. And I read the book. It only takes 12 minutes to read the whole book, basically, at least the story part. And I had the people in tears, right? Myself too, because it's very tricky to read something that personal as well. But I had many, many people, like over half of the people had tears in their eyes. And that was my sign, I'm onto something. If they would show no reaction, that would be my sign to go back to the drawing board and see how you can change that. And the other occasion was, so our son was in primary school at that time. And we had somebody who would, how do you call those people who come to the school with the kid, like to sit by them all the time, and like
an additional teacher, like a support teacher.
Yeah, something like that. So, and like basically a companion, due to and he wanted to not have that companion just show up and nobody knows what's happening. He wanted to know the class that he is autistic. So he asked me to take the draft of the book and read that book to his class, to basically have an outing in front of the class with that book. So what we did is we invited the class, we came to the school, and I read that draft to all his classmates. And we didn't say it's about autism. It's just I want to read a story. After I've read the story, ask them what they heard, what they experienced, and all that kind of stuff. It was a very deep reflection by the kids, actually. They heard a lot, as you told about your son. And then I said, look, like basically I am the alien and Yasha is the alien too. So, and that's what you call autism. And that was like a very emotional moment for all of us. But you saw the light bulbs, literally the light bulbs on the heads of the teachers and the pupil, like his colleague, like his students as well in the class. So that was a very powerful thing.
Why do you think imagery does this for us? Why does it create that clarity? Like, what is the power in it that's doing that for us?
So there are two types of imagery. So there's imagery that you create with words, right? And there's an imagery that you literally see as pictures on the page. And like one element is that most of our brain is like wired for visuals, right? So 60 to 70% of our brain is just working for the visual impact of the world. So we experience the world through visuals, as well as when we work with more senses than one. Like when you just write a book with words, it's basically one sense, or perhaps two, three, because you feel the book and you smell the book, but basically you read text. It's more or less one sense. If you add more to that in terms of somebody's reading it out loud to you, or you see pictures in the book, right? Or the text in itself is a picture because you lay out it in a way that it creates like a dynamic on the page. You add more dimensions to it, which increases the level of experience that you have. It's just a deeper experience on more levels of your senses than you would have if you just read it.
I find this fascinating. It makes me want to go back to university and like do research projects. Let's talk about the fact that you create really high quality books.
Mm-hmm.
How do you do that? I'm guessing you don't do it through Ingram Spark. And if you don't, can you talk me through kind of what that process looks like and how you've done it?
Yeah. So what I do is I always have like a portfolio of different products. So I would have a product that's through Ingram Spark and through KDP as well, which is basically a trade product. Then it's kind of the normal quality. But as well, I have offset printing products. So what I do is I do a print run. I did that for my Creating Clarity book, and I will do that for The Wrong Planet as well. Which means I print like 500 to 1,000 copies. On bulk, right? And I have like a warehouse where I put them, which helps me to have the highest possible quality, because print on demand already is super good, right? Nowadays. And we have Bookvault now in the UK, which like they create like beautiful books too. But it gets even better if you use offset printing. It's just better. There is a risk to this because you have a pre-investment of a few thousand, or for the kids' book, I will spend like 10,000. For Creating Clarity, I spend like 15. So that's a risk, but you could do a Kickstarter or something to finance that if you want to. But you can choose completely freely all the materials that you want to, completely free. So which kind of paper? There are thousands types of papers out in the world. And you can do material tests and you can choose just the right paper with a bit of silken finish on it, or thicker, thinner, more volume. You can choose like the cover, which should be like matte, or would you like lac on it, or like foil, all that kind of stuff you can choose when you do an offset. I know Joe is now printing with foil at Bookvault, but still the interior is great, but it could be even better if you do offset. It's a detail, but it just feels really good. And as well, you can have like a stitched binding, not a glue binding, but stitched and all that kind of stuff. It's very in the minor details that makes it just that little bit better. And I feel it's super important to do that nowadays, because if you create a high quality book like I do here, and people receive a high quality book, they assume that the content is better as well, because it's kind of the shiny object syndrome, right? You have this beautiful book in your hand, and all of a sudden you enjoy reading it even more, even though it's the same text like in a paperback. but it just feels different, doesn't it? And it's a brand building exercise, therefore, because people associate with yourself as an author the high quality standards that you do with your high quality books are as well in the content, and that kind of builds kind of a bridge or like even a barrier for you to brand yourself and to stand up in this world of AI and mass market and all that kind of stuff.
So does that increase your level of administration, like for sending out copies and stuff like that? Because because I love the sound of like the offset and the high quality and all the details, but I don't love the sound of the admin. Like I'm assuming there's more admin involved.
No, that's true. So yes, you have the admin. So either you sell enough books that you can just have a warehouse that's taking over as well the shipping and all that kind of stuff if you want to. But for me, on my store, I sell directly. I offer all my books then signed, so I will sign them. And to be very honest, like I'm not at that level that I sell like 50 books per week, so it's not that much per week. But I really enjoy getting an order, going to like my small warehouse, grabbing my book and writing, like signing it with a name and a nice sentence, packing it together, and go to the post office and like. It's kind of the feeling of somebody bought this and I like it feels special at the moment.
Yeah.
We have to talk in 2 or 3 years when I sell like 50 to 100 books a week. I might have shifted the process.
Well, I mean, I feel exactly the same about that. I enjoy that process still at the moment. I think for me, I will do a non-signed, which goes through Book Vault. And then I will keep small stock of special editions that I will sign. And deal with the Amit, but then there'll be a premium price on it.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the only thing you can do. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's just kind of round up this conversation because I also want to talk about clarity. One of the things that you did that I really liked in the back of your book was be quite business minded. So I wonder if you can talk about the back matter. You've sort of put it in 2 halves in the back, and I thought it was really genius. So could you talk a little bit about the stuff that you put in your back matter at the back of the book?
Yes. So we're talking about the autism children's book, right? The Wrong Planet.
Yeah.
And what I did is, so I asked for raising awareness for autism in general and for the book. So I have a very small like short paragraph on just telling people that it's possible to tell other people about the book, and that it would be, for example, a good gift for, like, if you are a grandparent, you could give that to your grandchildren, or if you're a caretaker or whatever, and just remind people there that you could give that book away or buy that book for somebody else. Because I know for myself, you read a book and you close it. But if you get that inspiration, often enough people say, actually, you're right. I know somebody who could use that book. And they perhaps were recommended. So I put as well the link on my website, so my direct store. If they want to share it, they can do that. That's the first part. The second part is that I tell people that I'm open to do workshops in schools and organizations, and that I have done that before, as I told you, with Autism Switzerland, reading the book to people and had very good experiences. So people just know that it's possible, because, like, a lot of people read books, and most of the people know there is an author behind the book, obviously, but would they assume that that author would come to their organization to read the book? Not necessarily. But if they read it, I hope that they say, like, yeah, really, I could use that. Like, we could use a reading of this book and talking about that topic. Why not? And I have my email address for that too in that book. And the last piece is telling them as well, if you are a school or organization, we have bulk discount. So if you buy like 50 books, I will give you a proper discount, just to encourage as well. Very, like, hopefully polite enough. I mean, you've read it, polite enough, but just saying, reach out to me. I'm happy to give you a good discount if you want to order in bulk, because that's something, again, that people often don't assume. They say, okay, the book costs X, so if I buy 50 copies, it's just X by 50. And that's not the case. I can give them a very attractive deal.
I thought it was genius, and not something that I have thought about. I know one of my friends who writes nonfiction has a bulk buy, but more like looking at the corporate end. And I just thought, I thought it was great. So I wanted to include that because I think it's a fantastic tip. Yeah. Okay, let's move on to talking about clarity. Why do you feel like creating clarity in your work is so important? What do you even mean by creating clarity?
How much time do we have? So what I see, like, and since 3 years, I know why I see that, right? Because I'm autistic, I see that, I guess. I see a lot of people talking about things that they think they are aligned on, but they talk about actually different arguments and don't even recognize it. So one example from the business world is I'm regularly coaching executives in big corporations. So imagine the C-suite, the high executive of an organization, and we meet for a strategy workshop, and we come together, and everybody is saying, of course, we are all aligned on the company strategy. I mean, that's normal, right? Is it? So I give them a piece of paper. I give them prepared stickers that they could place on the paper like icons. And I say, with these icons and the paper, please create a picture of the strategy of the company, but individually, don't talk to each other. So they create that strategy, right, on the paper with the stickers. We place them all on a wall quite nicely, like in a gallery. And we
just see where this is going.
So we build a circle around it, and we see like 8 different pictures, completely different pictures. And I say, like, so you say we are aligned on the strategy, but what I see here is not alignment. And it's, again, that light bulb moment for them to say, oh, you're right. And then they start to discuss. It's not about shaming them. It's about awareness. And with those pictures, they then can ask, like, why did you put logistics so close to procurement? Why did you put this so close to that? I thought it would look like this and that. It's very more specific as a conversation already. And it's more clear because they end up aligning to one shared picture of their strategy. And if anybody asked them again, they all answer in the same way. Before they thought they were aligned, afterwards they are aligned. So alignment is kind of the big thing where I say clarity helps you with, right? And the second thing, because I know that you outline with sticky notes, right? Our brain is actually not capable to keep that many things at the same time. Basically, in our awareness, it's just jumping back into unconsciousness often enough, and we try to hold it, but then it's difficult to think about something else. What happens is when, for example, you, Sasha, you put the sticky notes, right? You outline on sticky notes and you put them on the whiteboard, right? Yes, beside you. So my question to you would be, is it happening? And this is something I at least I observe with myself and my clients. Is it happening for you too? When you put sticky notes on that whiteboard and you write your outline of your book, and you wrote one sticky note and you wrote another one and you put it right beside that sticky note, and all of a sudden you see, oh, that doesn't make sense. It's that there's a missing link between the first and the second sticky note. Is that happening to you?
So I find this really interesting. I got a scholarship to do a PhD. I studied psychology at university, and I nearly went and did a PhD. And my PhD was in distributed cognition. And if I had gone and done the PhD, I'm so glad I didn't, I would have been proven wrong. And I only know this in adult life now, which is horrendous to have to admit. But essentially, it was on a concept called distributed cognition. And there's a very old academic paper around, funnily enough, AI, and knowing, being able to tell if something is AI or human, like responding to stuff. And it's all about this concept of where does cognition end? Like, is cognition restricted to the confines of brain, bone, and skull? And I, as a young, cocky academic, was like, of course it is. Of course it is. You know, it has to be in our brain, which is total bullshit. Because if you know, and I know this now as I get older, and I'm like, no, hang on a second. Let me just draw it out for you. Let me just, you know, and I can't draw for shit, right? My drawings are terrible. But the action of drawing a graph or making circles or making marks on the page enables my brain to find that word explanation in order to be able to communicate the thing that I'm trying to say. And half the time, the drawing isn't actually even relevant. Like we don't even need to look at the drawing. It's that the drawing is helping the cognition, and it's like an input feedback loop. And so the Post-its, the reason I do it on sticky tabs is so that I can move them around. So yesterday I was working on kind of the sort of 50 to 65% bit of the plot structure, and I've moved the fucking Post-its around like 14 times yesterday because I couldn't get it right. And there's something about the tactile nature of being able to feel it's the sensory thing for me again, like being able to feel the Post-its and feel the pen in my hand that facilitates my cognition. And the thing that I've really learned, and I've learned this with GPT as well, because I'm learners in my top 5. I want to learn GPT. I want to learn the AI. How do I control the AI? I want to learn this thing. It doesn't work for me in the way that it's working for so many other people, because it's shortcutting my thinking. Yes. So it's doing the thinking for me, but then I have massive holes in my brain, and so that, like, I have to use GPT almost as like a inspiration prompt, so that it gives me the input and then I do the thinking. Whereas and that's why I can't type outlines. Like, a lot of people will type their outline, but there's not enough physicality in that, which is so bizarre, because then when I'm transferring the story from my brain onto the page, I can't handwrite, I have to type. And so it's this very weird process for me. But I genuinely feel like the Post-its are an extension of my brain and cognition.
No, absolutely. And that's what I mean when I say clarity. It's, can you find ways, techniques to help your brain think more clearly? Because if you keep your brain like bound in your skull, it has very limited capacity. If you extend your brain to your fingers, to the pen, to a Post-it, to like a drawing or a poster on the wall, whatever it is, then you like exponentially raise the potential of your brain. Right? And that's happening through clarity.
It's so interesting. I wonder how does running affect your cognition?
Running is like, while I'm running, it's more my unconscious that's working, right? What running does is it kind of activates my whole body, and therefore enables me to think better afterwards, especially like because I prefer to, like, when I am creative and I'm thinking about stuff, conceptually deep thinking, I prefer to do that on my feet. Like being able to walk around, actually working on like a flip chart or on a wall or on a standing desk. In the moment that I stand, I'm so much more creative than if I sit down. Perhaps you try that for yourself someday, but it's really like helping.
The interesting thing for me is I can't be at the desk. I have to sit on the floor. Like, there's something about having my feet on the floor that I need, or like more of my body pressing against the floor is what helps. And often I'll lie down. I'll just like lie on the floor, like with Post-its, or there's definitely something to be said. I've never even thought about the fact that I do this, but I don't sit in this chair. This chair is for typing or for podcasting or standing. Sometimes I stand and podcast. So I wanted to, let's say people are like me and their level of drawing involves the 5-year-old level of drawing. What do you say to them to kind of encourage them to experiment or to try and draw their way into clarity?
So first of all, you don't need actually to draw, but first start, for example, like you do, Sasha, using sticky notes and externalize your thoughts on a surface with writing. You could be more like sophisticated and then start using different colors in terms of color coding for different topics and stuff, right? So, but being precise, not using colors because they are beautiful and they are fun, but say this color is dedicated to that person in my book, for example, right?
That's exactly what I do.
Right? Yeah, so helpful, because all of a sudden you see that person like appearing like in certain chapters, but then not enough in the middle or something. And without even reading the sticky notes, you can say, that is not in balance. I need to fix that. That's the first step of visual thinking, right? Using color. And if you then feel more obliged to draw something, take like just a kid's book, like a drawing book or something that your kid have, and draw one drawing every day, like 2 minutes, right? Just copy one drawing every day if you want to, and you get used to drawing. Or just skip that, fuck that, and say, even if I can't draw, I will do it anyways, because what you just said is most of the drawings are not supposed to be drawings that we look at afterwards again. Most of the drawings that we use for thinking are just for the sake of moving our hand on the paper to help our brain think. So literally in the moment that you're done thinking, you could throw that paper away. It's not needed anymore. So why even bother if you can draw? Just move the pen on the paper.
Oh, I just find this so interesting. I'm really disappointed. We're already at an hour. This is the Rebel Author Podcast. So tell everyone about a time you unleashed your inner rebel.
Yes. I would like to choose like a story from school, because you read one of my major rebel stories some weeks back in the podcast here. But I have one from school. And this is not to brag, it's just to say like how an autistic individual, like looking backwards, how an autistic individual is rebelling. As I said, I didn't know I'm autistic. So imagine myself being in 9th and 10th grade. I'm not sure how that translates to the UK, which would that be? In Germany, that's the Gymnasium. And we have a teacher in math. And the math teacher didn't like me. Especially he didn't like my mother, who was like a bit outspoken in those kind of parental meetings in the school. And that teacher was angry with me after that. And he tried to basically make fun of me, show what I can't do, show my weaknesses, all the difficult math exercises that would have been done. He would call me in front and let me do that. And again, I didn't know I'm autistic, but now with that knowledge, I didn't have a way to solve that problem, right? I didn't know how to, I was not able to speak to somebody properly about that problem. So I decided to make no mistakes anymore. Meaning, from that moment on, 9th to 10th grade, I didn't do a single mistake in math anymore. That means every how do you call in Germany we say Prüfungen, and it's every test, right? Every math test, I would finish with not even a writing mistake, like 0 mistakes.
Wow.
And I enjoyed those moments when he came to me, like gave me that math test back. It's like, no mistakes.
Where is your competition? Because I'm like, oh my God.
My competition is on 33. I have 0 competition. But in that moment, and lucky enough, I was able to do that. But in that moment, I just decided in math, you will never do a mistake again. And for 2 years straight, I did not a single mistake. And that teacher, stopped then talking to me and reaching out to me and all that kind of stuff.
There is no greater revenge than success.
Yeah.
Like literally, it is the best revenge you can get on anybody, because there is fuck nothing they can do or say. It is like my fucking favorite type of revenge. Like, oh, that is so sweet. What an incredible journey and incredible story. I bloody love that rebellion. Oh, that's going to make me smile all day long. Tell everyone where they can find out more about you, your books, like anything else that you would like to add.
Yes. So you find me on my website, and that's a bit complicated, holgernilspohl.com, which is HOLGERNILSPOHL.com. And we might do that in the show notes as well. If you put a /autism behind that, you will find the pre-order of my autism children's book. So I would be happy if you go there and check it out and see if you like it. You can pre-order it right now and get that special edition, that high quality book. As well as on all social media, I'm under my full name, Holger Nils Pohl. You can find me there wherever you want to search for me. And that's basically everything.
Amazing. Well, I will make sure all of those links are in the show notes. And thank you so much for your time today. And of course, thank you to all of the show's listeners and all of the show's patrons. If you would like to get early access to all of the episodes, you can do so by visiting patreon.com/Sasha Black. I'm Sasha Black. You were listening to Holger Nils Pohl, and this was the Rebel Author Podcast. Week, I'm joined by Adam Beswick, TikTok and Instagram superstar, and we are going to be talking all about selling direct, TikTok shop, and how to take ownership of your sales and direct more sales towards you rather than giving all of your money, your sales, and control of your customers to other stores, if you catch my drift. Okay, come back next week for that. Don't forget to tune in and subscribe on your podcatcher. And when you have a moment, please leave a review.